Getting into the securitization with Raja, this is one segment. The other segment we're going to get into for this program is the corruption of the court system. They just passed a public law 112-63. What this gets into, what it explains, is the jurisdiction and venue clarification of the federal courts. What they have come back in and stated is what we've been teaching all along. When you're going into the United States District Court, that United States District Court is an IRS court. That United States District Court is a bankruptcy court. That United States District Court, it falls under foreign sovereign immunity. It falls under Title 28, that 1391. That foreign sovereign immunity is a foreign state court. This is for dealing with alien residents. And that's how they have the American people classified. See, all this falls back under the bankruptcy of 1933. Because if you look at and you get into the Public Law 148 Stat 1, and you get into the state of emergency, it deals with the Trading with the Enemy Act of October 6, 1917. Go back and read this. And it shows that it made the American people alien residents, alien enemies of the state. And all you have to do is go back in, look under Title 50, get into Chapter 3 for alien residents, get into Section 23. It says jurisdiction of the courts and judges. And it gets in and classifies the criminal aspect. And this is where criminal charges comes in. And they're dragging you and I in under alien residents as an alien enemy resident. So when they
How did they sell the people on that in 1917?
What they did in 1917, that's when World War I came out. All right, remember, the Federal Reserve came in 1912, 1913. Whenever Germany wanted to create the war in 1917, the Federal Reserve went over and sat down and says, okay, you want to create a war, you use our currency, not yours. So what they did is they took over their German money, gave them Federal Reserve notes so they can sit here and buy and sell and trade. So this way the Federal Reserve can make profit on both sides of the fence. This is how they did it. Where it worked so well that in 1933 they passed what is known as the Mandatory Act here in the United States, where they made the people the enemy of the state.
In 1913?
1933. 1933. That's when they did the bankruptcy. That's where the state of emergency comes in. See, nobody was teaching. Most people understand HJR 192, which was Public Law 10, Chapter 48 Stat 112. That's where they came in. They took the gold and silver off the people. But they took the gold and silver off the people after they passed the state of emergency clause. They did the state of emergency first, put you as an enemy of the state under the Trading with the Enemy Act. Then they came in and confiscated our money. We now got occupied, and we was never aware of this. See, nobody teaches this side. I do. And
surely people who had to give up their gold were upset. They felt probably ripped off.
Well, see, they did, but see, the problem of it is, what people were not told, that's where McFadden comes in 1932. He sits here and shows where the Federal Reserve embezzled $113 billion in gold bullion out of this country. And guess where it went? Went to Germany in 1939 for Hitler to start the war.
Wow, I've never heard
this
that.
This is all documented in congressional records. This is why this is so important. This is why we bring this stuff up, because it can all be validated through
congressional records. This is incredible.
Records.
It's like our media doesn't give us a clue of what's really going on in Congress.
This is all hidden. This has all been tucked away.
So I understand you and Raja would go down to D.C. and go to Congress.
We have. We've been down there.
That's how you find this out?
Well, no. I found this out way before that. What we did is when we was up in Maryland, Raja, Jeff, and Carl Weston, and a few people from the seminar we had, we went down to D.C. We showed them how to lobby Congress, how to deal with the corruption of the courts. And what we brought into the legislation is I sit down and says, look, I said, we got a very serious problem here. We need to address the bankruptcy of 1933. You should have seen the people came out of the back room. They didn't want their front office clerk hearing this.
Yeah.
We rattled their cage. We hit a point. We went back and we addressed the fact that they did the Trading with the Enemy Act on American people under the Mandatory Act of 1933. Show where they brought it in the 1917 Trading with the Enemy Act, brought it into 1933. We showed where they did all this. These people came out of the woodwork to shut us up. We got out in the hallway and we talked to several different gentlemen, and they flat out told us we got hold of the Ways and Means Committee, not the congressman, but his aide. And we explained this to him. He says, I want to tell you what, it is about time you people start walking into Congress and laying down congressional records that back up the corruption of the system.
You know, Rod, at the deed office here in New York City, I had some people who work in the deed office saying, you know, it's about time. It was the Rob Ryder stuff that I did.
But see, everything I tell people, and my whole philosophy is, if we're going to do the paperwork, make sure you got the black ink on white paper. Make sure when you walk in, like we walk into bankruptcy court, we're bringing in Title 12, banking laws, 95, 95A, 95B, Section 411. The obligation of the Federal Reserve Note goes right back into the United States. It don't belong to the people. So when you're bringing in their own statutes, you're bringing in their own regulations, they can't argue with their own black ink on white paper. They try to throw it out as frivolous, unintelligible, incomprehensible. But now your objection comes back in. Are you telling me that you're not capable of understanding your own rules and regulations? That it's that frivolous? If it's frivolous, then you don't have a job here sitting on the bench as a judge, because that means you're incapable of understanding your own rules and regulations.
Now, their own rules and regulations, is that a way of keeping another monopoly from coming along and doing what they're doing?
Well, this is part of it. They don't want any of this brought in.
Okay.
They don't want it brought in. Because, see, the lawyers...
They got a good scam going.
Yes. This is why Rob, when he tried to bring it into the court in Cincinnati...
Excuse me, now Rob was the attorney
for your
clients.
He was the attorney for Carl and Vera.
And he was a member of the bar.
Yeah.
Right.
And the judge threatened him with disbarment if he would bring in the truth. No lawyer can bring the truth into a courtroom. This is why I try to teach the people why we're doing AIB radio. We do it 2 nights a week on Tuesdays and Fridays, to where we get the people to download, understand the laws, understand your rules, go in and defend yourself, because no attorney can come in and bring any of this information in, because he's a bar member. He can't expose the fraud. He can't expose the corruption. We can. And this is what upsets them. This is one of the reasons why they passed this new clarification in the federal court. But what they turned around and admitted is that they're bringing it in under foreign state. They admitted that they're bringing it in under alien residents.
They admitted you have
They admitted it's the clarification. What this is, now this isn't a new law. This is a clarification of an old law. Now stop and think. Clarification of the old law? What they're sitting here saying, that every single person who's ever been brought before a federal court in the United States District Court has been tried wrong. They brought them in under foreign sovereign immunity. They brought them in where they had to go through the Department of State. They had to get a waiver. They never did any of this.
Never went to the State Department.
That's exactly right. And this is part of it, because when you're going into the foreign sovereign immunity side, what this is like China suing the United States. You've got to get permission. You've got to get your immunity waivers. Okay? The attorneys, with this new law that they just passed for clarification, this means that every single attorney that's ever misrepresented anybody in federal court is now liable for a lawsuit for misrepresentation. Because when they brought you into the United States District Court, they brought you into a foreign sovereign immunity court, or they brought you into a territorial court, And this is where we are teaching how to go into the district court of the United States, because that district court does exist. Because when we got into their rule books, you get into Title 28, get into Section 610, it tells you Court of Appeals, District Court of the United States, Lower D.C., capital U.S., then it gets into the capital U.S. District Court for Guam. So the United States District Court is a territorial court as well as a foreign sovereign immunity court, and they brought everybody into the wrong court. And we have now been able to prove it.
So you're saying that as natural-born Americans, we have a certain immunity from this foreign entity?
Okay, now let me give you just a quick breakdown here. Go back into the Act of 1871. That is when the District of Columbia was created, right? Okay, that was Washington and Georgetown. That was part of the United States at one time. When they passed the Act of 1871, they created the District of Columbia. When they created the District of Columbia, they took it out of the United States of America and they made it a territory. So when they made it a territory, all laws have to come under the District of Columbia, not the United States of America. This is one of the reasons why I want to run for President of the United States. That's why we're doing a write-in for me, in order to get me in so we can come back in and fix the problem. We
Rodney
don't need
Dale
changes.
Class,
Rodney
right?
Dale Class. Has to be my full name. Rodney Dale Class.
RODNEYDALECLASS.
Correct. And this is why, because we need to fix the problem. We need to put this country back into the people's hands. We need to dissolve the District of Columbia, take it out of the jurisdiction, and make it part of the United States of America again. Because, see, all these courts are charging us wrong. Because when you get dealing with IRS, what do they charge you under? The United States of America. That doesn't exist.
Oh, okay.
It doesn't exist. Why? Because of the Act of 1871. Because they dissolved the United States of America. They turned it into the District of Columbia. And see, nobody's caught this.
Your research team actually went to Delaware and found out it was a Delaware corporation that did not register in all the other states, so it's also illegal for that reason?
It's also illegal for that reason, but it's the fact in 1871 when they dissolved the United States and created the District of Columbia, because like I said, you remember Washington Town and Georgetown, that was part of Virginia and Maryland, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So when they did the District of Columbia, they made it a territory. What's a territory? It's not part of the United States. It is an subsidiary. So our capital is a territory. It's not the United States of America. It's the District of Columbia. They're bringing all the wrong charges into the wrong area, into these courts. The lawyers know it. The judges know it. We now know it. And this is what we're pushing. We've got to get the people to wake up.
So as president, what can you do? Because you say you can fix the problem.
Well, very simple. Remember, we're under that state of emergency clause. We don't need executive orders. We need general orders. A general order, because of the state of emergency, will allow the President of the United States to use the military to come in and to get rid of the garbage and get rid of the corruption that we're dealing with. Kennedy was on the right track, but he left the corruption in office when he took over. Everybody wants to run under executive order. First thing I would do is run under general order. I'd bring the military in. We would clean up. We would dissolve the corporation, and we'd put things back into the people's hands. This is where part of the county assembly, what we talked about here on some of the shows, but the county assemblies have to be set up right. It has to be put back into the people's hands. See, the grand jury that they've talked about and some of this stuff, a grand jury only has one function. A grand jury is to hear if there's enough evidence to warrant a trial. It's like what they did here with Obama. Federal court down in Georgia tried to charge him. They couldn't charge him because he was never impeached. They didn't follow protocol. That's the number one problem. I teach protocol. I'll show you what protocol is. You have to go through the Senate manual. It's like the Jefferson's manual. Jefferson's manual deals with the House. Senate manual deals with the Senate, and it deals with the President. It's what his job is. That's exactly what it is.
That's wonderful, Rod. So let's see what the New York audience has to say, and we'll be taking calls.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.